and welcome to Stephen University. This week we're discussing growing pains, an episode in which Stephen, literally has growing pains. He starts sort of deforming, turning pink. It's all getting a bit out of hand, so he goes to see Connie's mum for some good old-fashioned doctoring. He doesn't have a GP, it turns out.
Very old-fashioned doctoring. She does the leg tapping.
Yeah. Is that a thing, Jesse? I don't think I've ever had that done to me.
I think you know what? I think I have, because I think I was like, this is weird. This is what they show on TV.
You know what? Actually, that thought, I think you're right. I think I've had it once, and my leg genuinely kicked out, and I was really surprised because I was like, I never assumed that actually worked. Anyway, so yeah, he goes to
I
see.
don't think it can. Surely it can't.
What's that, sorry?
Surely it can't actually work.
No, it does.
Yeah, fair enough.
No, as you said that, I remember thinking that and being really surprised that they tapped my leg and then my leg sort of my foot sort of went out a bit, and I was like, that reflex happened, and I was like, I don't understand what you just did and how you made my leg move. Like I didn't like it. That memory is all just come flooding back to me. That must have been when they thought. Bit dark, but there was a point when they didn't think they were having me checked because some of the symptoms I was showing were like potentially serious of something brain wise. So right. Yeah, so they were doing a lot of tests at that point. They had one of the ones they did right. So they gave me a bunch of options as to what could explain my symptoms. One of which was like a tumor or a growth in my head or whatever. I was like, great, that sounds horrendous.
I think I remember this. Yeah,
they sent me to a specialist, and one of the tests he made me do was to close my eyes, put my arms out in a T pose, and then have one of them touch my nose. And if I was spatially aware enough to touch my nose, first try, that was good. I guess that was a weird test. I started to question if that man was really a doctor.
That kind of makes sense, though. I get the logic in that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they got gained from tapping my knee and watching my leg kick out a bit.
Yeah, but I think that arm one's a really good one. Because that's like... I think they're right. That's a real sense of spatial awareness.
Right. Yeah, and I suppose if you did have something going wrong in your brain, that might be off somehow. I don't know.
It's like that. Yeah, it's like that thing that was in Hannibal, where it was like draw the clock.
Yeah, right. And I've seen that in a couple of different TV shows recently. They did it in. I'm not going to be a spoiler. I'm not going to say that. They did it in another TV show that I watched recently as well. The clock thing.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I think you're right though. I think actually I do remember the leg popping out, kicking out.
Yeah, I think that's real and works. Anyway,
yeah.
Back to the episode. So Stephen, we discover through the testing that Stephen's received a lot of physical trauma over the years, but his body has always healed immediately. But physical trauma usually is because of real trauma, and Dr. Maheshwaran correctly observes that Stephen's probably got a lot of stuff building up. And it turns out that there's a sort of a gem version of cortisone that is causing his body to react when he's feeling anxious or upset as if it's a life-threatening situation, because his body got so used to responding to life-threatening situations because of how much trauma he experienced in his life. And as that happens, obviously, the Connie stuff starts to come up because Connie's there, and that sets him off in a much more serious way. Then Greg shows up because Connie rang him a little bit earlier in the episode and calms him down, and they have a really sweet moment. So in terms of plot, not a lot happens in this episode, but in terms of just the quality storytelling, oh boy, this is a really good episode. Because I think it's
great.
I think it would have been like after watching. I think we talked about this. Just to hit an overall thought. We talked about this after we watched Prickly Pear, I think, and we were like, God, it's all so mixed up. The reasoning for Stephen being set off, it's also complicated, and we were sort of yearning for not a simpler explanation, but just something, putting your finger on the exact cause of the issue. The way this episode lays out how his trauma affects him and how he's responding to it explains absolutely every single instance of him turning pink prior to now, instantly. And that's If you'd have told me they were going to achieve that with any episode this season, and I said you're out of your mind. I say it's way more complicated than that. Steven's reacting to different things in different ways, and it's all this and it's all that, and it's all very complicated and mixed up, and that's why it's so interesting. And they've managed to keep that. They've not made it less interesting by simplifying it, but they have explained it in a simple way that feels really straightforward and easy to understand.
Yeah, and my favourite example of that was actually in the beginning of this episode when he's pink. Mm-hmm. And then his dad answers the phone and he immediately isn't pink. I thought that was beautiful. Mm-hmm. I thought that was so wonderfully animated. I love the idea behind it. I thought it was really sweet. I really, really loved that. I thought it was great.
100% agree. So yeah, that's any overall thoughts with the episode then? Like, because obviously I sort of accidentally went from description of the episode plot to some thoughts on it. How are you feeling?
No, I honestly, I loved it. I adored it. I thought it was so lovely. We did it. We named characters and people we wanted to see again, and I saw no reason to want to see Connie's mum, and she was a pure fucking joy. I loved all of that stuff. I loved the montage. I loved the idea of exploring Stephen. I loved when she was like, "Well, you are still human, so let's do this," and just her. The growth of her understanding of gem stuff, but wanting to explore it more as a physician. The word I can't say, but you know what I mean.
Physician.
Yeah.
Tell you what. So if you say the word physician, oh, you made me say it wrong now. Physician now correctly. I'll edit it into your previous sentence.
Oh, you don't need to do that. I don't care enough.
Do you want to say it right correctly? That would be funny now at this point. I think to awkwardly edit the word physician.
Right. So break the word down for me.
Physician.
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 What's amazing is it's making me say it wrong. Physician.
Physician is the second bit then. Physician.
Physician.
Fuck it. I don't care. I don't care enough
okay.
to carry on with
I guess we can't do that then. Maybe I'll edit one of the even more wronger ones over it.
I'll give you one now to edit over it. Physician. There you go.
There you go. Carry on.
I thought that was amazing. I thought Connie she's phoning someone when she walks off and picks up her phone. I think maybe you're meant to feel like maybe she's calling like a study buddy or about to like do some work or something. But I was like, she's phoning someone, and just the stuff with Greg at the end, and he's just like, he's ill. He needs his dad. Like it got to me. It's the closest, and listen to last week's episode for the context of this. Having to postpone my wedding, all that sort of stuff. I'm an emotional boy at the moment, so maybe it's that. And we know from this episode that from the past on this podcast that for some reason father stuff always gets me. But I was really like, it is the closest I've come to getting truly emotional at this show. I was, that scene at the end where Greg's looking after him, and Greg says, as dads do, Greg's like, don't worry about me, don't worry about the touring. Like, it's not even an issue, not even a factor. It fucking got me, man. It got me emotionally. Like, yeah,
and especially after we talked about this last week, the weird, almost abandonment of the crystal gems. And now well, we've raised you. You're good, right? Cool. We got shit to do. Like, I get it. Like, cause if you think if they're living in a world where they think he's happy and healthy, I guess it makes sense. But I just find it hard to believe they're completely convinced of that after Prickly Pear. But hey, especially forget Prickly Pear. Garnet knows, because Garnet knows everything. Like, it's hard to have her be there to support Stephen in last week's episode and then just be like, she's not around.
Yeah,
she should know, right? Like, that's the whole.
I agree.
That's her whole thing.
Completely. Do you think as well? Just and I don't know if we've said this before or not, but in a world where we've got Star Wars and Marvel and DC, in a world where there's a hell of a lot of daddy issues and there's a hell of a lot of lost, just shows where it's the you don't see many, like, outside of sitcoms, many sort of earnest, real dad relationships. Greg in that moment is a just a true dad, and I think it's it's probably because I've recently written a speech, and like the other honestly, dude, the other day, Dad came round to help us put up a fence post because it blew down in the storm. And we discovered that the old fence post was wood that had been concreted in. So the dude dug out rotting wood for about an hour, like trying to clear this hole to put it in. And I just think
hero.
like, yeah, he's a fucking champion. And I just think like, actually, through a lot of pop culture that people that would be engaging with Steven Universe are potentially watching, like I say, the aforementioned Star Wars, Marvel, all of that stuff. You get a lot of very different types of relationships between fathers and sons, and I think actually I just want to take this moment to appreciate how wonderful Steven Universe is for the father and son relationship it portrays here.
Yeah, and I think we've complimented the show on this before in the early days, because we talked a lot about how in the very first episode, when Steven brings up his dad, and Pearl's like, "Ugh, can you help?" It's not the very first episode, actually, the second episode, the light cannon one.
Yes, yeah.
Pearl's like, "Your dad's not really, and then Amethyst kicks in with like, "He's kind of a mess, dude," or something like that. And like the idea, and then you see Greg and he's living in a van, and it's like the initial. What I love about the show is they were just waiting to subvert our expectations, because that's the setup for Greg. Then you actually spend time with him and you go, oh, that's just the impression people have of him. He's actually this super caring dude that really loves his son and has always been supportive. He could have so easily been that sort of like the bum dad archetype that sitcoms like, Homer Simpson, your man from Married with Children, Bundy, not Ted Bundy, Al Bundy. Ted Bundy would be or equally a terrible father, I'm sure, but for very different reasons. Al Bundy, that sort of archetype of the lout, the layabout dad, not emotionally in tune, all that jazz. But Greg has been the beacon of the opposite of that.
It really reminded me of the episode where Steven's texting, not getting a reply from Connie, and he's really panicky, and Greg's like, the Gems try and help and they can't, and Greg's like, oh, this one's for me. This is where I step in. Like, I loved it. So I was a huge fan. I think it's probably potentially my favourite episode of Steven Universe Future so far. I loved it.
Really, I loved it too. I'm a little surprised to hear that, but I think that's wonderful. I think that's I think you're certainly not wrong. It is definitely one of the best they've done.
Yeah, and then favourite's very different to best in a way. Like favourite's incredibly subjective and stuff.
Yes.
But potentially I'm again more subjective to this content at the moment. But I just thought like I said, I think it was first of all I'm like, oh, okay, I really like what they're doing with the Stephen and Connie stuff, and then I'm like, oh, this is interesting. What's happening to Stephen? And then I loved, and I think partly out of surprise, loved the Connie's mum stuff, and part of that love was, I'm really enjoying this. Like, I never would have been like, in a world where we started with the Peridot episode. I'm really enjoying it. And sorry, I'm just remembering that this episode technically starts with Dogcopter.
Yes, well, we'll get to that. That was in my shit I noticed section because I wasn't sure we'd get to it in the main discussion. But yeah, it does. It starts with an amazing trailer for Dogcopter. Dogcopter. Wait, what's it called? It's called like Dogcopter 6. Till death do we bark. I now pronounce you man and wolf.
I imagined it. I saw it as the end of Dogcopter 5, but I think a trailer probably makes more sense, or a preview clip or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it has the title at the end. Yeah.
Or maybe it's the first scene of it. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, that's the logistics of that don't matter. But yeah, I loved it. Big fan. All in.
Yeah, it's great. And what I like as well is that we feel like we're in a really neat flow now, because this episode is a direct sort of response to the content of the previous episode. So this is directly dealing with Steven's reaction to the proposal that went wrong, essentially.
And on that, can I just say, sorry to interrupt your flow, I don't know why I said flow, so weird. But I hope the next episode does the same. I hope the next episode starts with Greg looking. I don't want Stephen on his own plot. I want the next episode to be, it start with Stephen telling the gems what's happened. Greg telling the gems what's happened. Like, I want to see it. I just don't want it. I don't want it another episode starting with Stephen all alone. I want them to follow that Greg's now with him thread through.
Well, I mean, the episode is called Mr. Universe, so I've got to assume.
Well, then, good.
I think you're absolutely right. I think that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah. As they should.
Yeah. They set up a lot of stuff in this episode. They set up what Greg's been up to as well.
Yeah, nice.
Managing Sadie and Shep.
What do you think they throw at the crowd?
Sorry, you broke up then. What was that, sorry?
Well, I said, what do you think they throw at the crowd?
Live chickens?
I don't know. There's just that line, isn't it? Greg says, you won't believe what they're throwing at the crowd. So, yeah.
You asked me what I thought. I reckon it's live chickens.
Oh, right, okay.
What do you think?
Contraception. Gotta stay safe, kids. Apparently our local Sainsbury's has completely sold out of contraception, so we know how seriously people are taking self-isolation around here.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, you're gonna be indoors for a long time potentially. You're gonna be bored.
Yeah, I suppose not everyone has series 3 of This Is Us to watch.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So let's break some of the bits down then. I'm trying to think. Well, I don't know. Have we come to a conclusion on the gems thing? Like, or are we just accepting that we don't particularly care for that idea?
What gems thing?
The way they've abandoned him.
Oh, yeah. No, I just don't particularly care for that. Yeah, because I completely agree with you. It's the trouble is we talked about this a fair bit last time, and I kind of think there's not much more to say. But exactly your point there, Garnet. We had Garnet come to his aid because she knew what position Stephen was in. So I just don't like the notion that they're just going away. Like, we've not seen Amethyst or Pearl in ages. Like, yeah.
Well, we saw. To be fair, we saw Pearl 2 episodes ago. Bismuth Casual.
Oh yeah, no, that's fair. We haven't seen Amethyst in ages. We haven't seen Amethyst this part yet.
No, not at all.
Part B, part 2, whatever. So yeah, but it doesn't sit well with me. But this Greg thing is I think it's a shame in a way because we know we've had the hints, we've had the theories, we've had the trailers, all of that stuff, and we have an episode coming up called Spoilers. If you don't want to know the episode titles, in 3, 2, 1, I Am My Monster. I just almost this episode ended so lovely. I almost don't want it to build to that. Even if we get like a really kick-ass Avengers shot, I just love the notion of the next few episodes being about Stephen talking. I thought one of the things that Connie's mum did that they did so effectively in this episode is Connie's mum really broke down mental health and broke down what happens and why in a really simple and clear way. And I loved the notion of having the time across these next 6 episodes to really get that message across of talk. I think it's incredibly vital over the next few months. Like once the health crisis of the kind of physical health crisis, I think, of everything that's happening goes or eases up a bit, I think the mental health element of it is going to be really important. So yeah, I really loved that, and I kind of want to explore that more with the time we've got than the theory of Stephen turning into a big monster and stuff. Yeah,
well, I mean, I gave my sort of idea of that in the last episode.
Yes,
because because here's the thing, I think we're in a situation now where there's two ways you could imagine this going. One is Stephen just starts healing. Now he understands it's internal and stops looking for external ways to solve his problems. Maybe if I'm in a relationship with Connie, I'll fix my problems. Maybe if I just focus on little homeschool, then I'll have, that's all my problems sorted, because in reality we know that's not helping because he's not dealing directly with the actual issue. He's just it's almost like he's distracting himself from it, or trying to plug a problem with the wrong solution, essentially. Now he knows it's internal and that it's to do with him and his own trauma and the way he's handling it. There's two ways this goes. The simplest way, which I actually don't think we're going to get, is Stephen just starts to slowly heal over the course of the next few episodes by learning things about himself and doing that stuff. And while I think I would prefer that, but I think we can assume that Stephen's going to try doing that next week, maybe in the Greg episode, and I think it's going to go wrong somehow. And I feel like that's what's going to lead to him getting desperate, because I think it's going to end up with people he loves getting hurt because he's out of control with his powers. And I think that's potentially leads into my theory from last episode, about him getting desperate and trying to remove his gem.
Yeah.
And that manifesting as this pink worm monster thing.
Yeah.
Because I just don't see them not doing something actiony or with a bit of scale towards the end of the series.
Yeah, and they probably should do something actiony. So I get that. Yeah.
So yeah, as much as I would love to just see Steven slowly get better now, he knows he needs to work on it himself. He's probably going to have to go through a little bit more trauma before he it's going to have to get worse before it gets better, basically.
Yeah.
Just for the show's structure, not even because that's what I want to happen. Obviously, for Stephen as a person who's watching this poor boy go through, God, more horrors. Like, yeah, I just want to let's just someone get him a therapist. Fuck me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Exactly that. Yeah. Someone just look out for this poor kid. He's losing his mind. But I don't think that's the way the show's going to go, just because of the structure of television and the way these things work. I think we're probably going to get something closer to what I've described. I don't necessarily know for sure. Obviously, I'm not planting a flag in the monster is I'm leaning more into the idea that the monster is a thing that comes from Steven than Steven becomes. But that doesn't mean. I think ultimately that, with only so many episodes left, I think it's pretty clear that Worm Monster is one of the final villains. Everything else has been sort of dealt with and put aside.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think of the? I thought the kind of, it wasn't really even body horror, but I thought the animation of Steven's body changing and transforming, and the animation of him gradually getting bigger, and the purple light casting a shadow over the entire room.
Yeah.
I thought that was beautifully done. I thought that looked fantastic.
It did.
What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I thought what was cool about it was that, because obviously stuff like that, like in single shots, it doesn't look that like crazy, especially when he's just getting larger. But the way they animated his body shifting, the actual movements of it, made it seem and look really unpleasant and uncomfortable for him. Like, especially when he's on the phone to Connie in the beginning, and his head just completely reshapes into this really distorted version of it. Like, it looks, it's the way it moves, I think, that really sells it, not just the actual still visuals. They're animated really well, I think, and I think that's what really sells it. But yeah, 100% agree with you. I think it really sort of, it's a little hint at the previous body horror we've had in the show, and you're right. The really cool. He's so pink and so big that it's the whole room just turns pink. Like, Greg looks pink. Everything looks pink. Yeah, it's a really cool way to do it, and it's also so ridiculous because Greg's having this really heartfelt conversation with Steven, and Steven is like giant and pink. It's almost ridiculous. Like, it's like
it's the way he hugs his thumb. It's just lovely.
Yeah, it's beautifully done.
I think it's his thumb.
Yeah. What did you think to the whole Steven blowing up because, like, Connie, like the idea of him saying to Connie, like, you need to leave, like, I can't see you right now, like she's what's setting him off, and then he finds out that Connie hasn't even mentioned the proposal to her mum, and like that angers him. which sets him off even more. I thought they'd handled it really well. I thought it was really balanced. I think because, again, this is like the same danger you have last week of Stephen and Connie's interaction potentially being like relationship ruining. But like when she leaves and he's like, thank you for calling my dad. I think he just says thank you. He puts so much heart into that delivery of thank you. You know it's sincere. So when you see Connie just be like, you're welcome. Like I knew you needed your dad. Like that, it's so well done.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it was a very real and honest reaction. Like I think it was a very human reaction. I think we can all relate to stuff like that. I've had things in the past with people where I thought we were one thing, and then you meet their friends and you realize you've never really been met. You're introduced as like, oh, this is in my case, this is Chris. He's from da 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 da, and you sit there and you go, fucking hell, she's got really specific, but you think, shit, she's not mentioned me to her friends, and all I've done is fucking talk about her to mine. Do you know what I mean? It's It's that. Do you know what I mean? It's that, and I think that's what that moment is. It's Stephen going, this thing was huge to me, but it's not been big enough for you to even talk about it with your mum. Like, what the hell? Like, and I think it was just a human, angry, upset reaction. And I think also the practicalities. She's basically told him that Stephen thinking about that incident is bringing all this on, and he can't look at Connie without thinking of that incident. So I think it was a very alien thing happening to a very human boy. And I think that's beautiful writing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one. I think the way they've set it up, it all fits so perfectly. It's like it's again the art of writing a TV show this complex and crescendoing all these plots into one coherent plot where it's all just very natural. Like, of course, the Connie's refusal to the proposal was exactly where that character should be. They didn't have to force anything. You know what it is? It's you've got all these blocks and all these holes. You know those kids' toys where you've got the different shaped little bits of wood and they go into the little holes? You've got all these different... The more complex your show is, the more complex the shapes get and the more of them there are. And actually making everything fit and choosing the right place to put everything becomes way harder. And they've nailed it. Like, it's everything has been... Nothing felt forced. They weren't like shoving like a circle into a square at any point or anything like that to get it through. They knew exactly what they were doing with this, and they've nailed it, to be honest with you, because you're right. The way that all crescendos with Stephen's actual, like, because obviously in reality Stephen's condition is nothing to do with Connie. Stephen's condition is because he was the boy destined to save gem society, like but Connie is this perfect earth grounding like relationship that's now obviously upsetting him, and his body's reacting in this way, but the way it's all pulled together has just been very clever. And I thought, as you already pointed out, Dr. Maheshwaran's response, an explanation was so succinct and so perfect. I actually wrote it down.
Yeah.
I wrote it down because it was so good. All these experiences have been subjecting your body to harmful amounts of stress, and that's affecting your body's ability to handle new forms of stress in a healthy way. You've been dealing with genuine threats from such a young age, your body is now responding to minor threats as if your life was in danger.
Yeah, so lovely, isn't it? What a great idea.
And how it how it ties to like people who get in real life with trauma. Rebecca talks in that interview I mentioned last week on IO9, which again I'll pop in the comments below in the subject. Oh God, what am I doing? Not the comments below. In the description below, there's a link to the IO9 article where Rebecca talks about where this was inspired by, and it's a really sad story actually, where she talks about her own life dealing with trauma after being attacked in her early 20s and how that affected her. And how she didn't understand why some of the anxiety and things she was feeling, potentially years later, was related to this past trauma. And she didn't go to, I think she talks about not maybe seeing a therapist because she didn't realize, and that's kind of what's inspired this storyline. So not only is this storyline incredibly rich for dramatic purposes and to make an entertaining television show where the characters are going through some stuff that you're really invested in and you really want to see them work out. But it's got all this real world implications as well, and it feels very believable, I guess, because it's based on real stuff. But oh boy, is it some heavy shit we're dealing with here. Yeah, the subtitle of the show should not have been Future. It literally should have been Get This Boy a Therapist. Because
like, Steven's in trouble.
Yeah, it's rough. And like seeing it all play out is really, really incredible to watch. Did you notice... Actually, before we get into the shit I noticed, is there anything else you want to add to any of that? Because again, I talked...
No. I'm keen to hear the shit you noticed.
Yeah, because I talked a lot there, and I had, like last week, I just felt like going, shit, no, you talk now.
No, it's fine. No, what do you notice? I did my big rambling about how great it is and a detour about fathers, so go for it.
Sure. So the obviously Dogcopter trailer was just one of my favourite things ever. Everything about that was funny. I particularly loved Good Boys Go for the blue car. That was just incredible. I mentioned obviously about Greg being a manager already.
Well, can we just pause on that? Do we think even that is genius? Do we think even the notion that Stephen, now an adult or a young adult, 16, 18, whatever,
yes, is
watching he's not got those, what they kind of covered in the Stevoni episode, this part of the season. He's not got those adult references, and I kind of get that. Like when we talked about what we were going to do on Saturday, the day that we fucking hell, I don't want to keep fucking mentioning this. It's all still very raw. Apologies if anyone's like, fucking hell, you postponed a wedding. We get it, dickhead. But we talked about what to do on Saturday. One of my suggestions was watch Only Fools and Horses. Like, and is that a reaction of you turn to the things that gave you comfort as a child? And do you think they're going, Stephen's just Stephen and he's into Dogcopter? Or do you think there's an element of Camp Pining Hearts, Dogcopter, his escapism is what gave him escapism as a child?
Yeah, absolutely. He's definitely taking comfort in the things from his past. I thought that was really genius because it comes across as just like you could look at it on it. There's a few different layers to it. Like the first layer is just that basic like, oh, Dogcopter's a funny thing. Oh, and they happen to doing a wedding thing, which is reminding Stephen of his current situation.
Yeah,
and then there's the deeper layers, which is definitely actually Dogcopter is supposed to be aimed at a younger crowd. Is he regressing somewhat, or is he just taking comfort in older stuff he used to love when he was younger? I think without question that is definitely what they were going for. And it's funny because awesome. Someone pointed out as well. Actually, it was once again to talk about Cram, but long time listener Cram, who also pointed out, because I was joking in the comments of the thingy that the whole thing with Camp Pining Hearts and Rodrigo. I was like, they both hate Rodrigo. It's hilarious. And Cram was like, actually, Steven doesn't hate Rodrigo at all. He identifies with his insecurities. It's only Peridot who hates him. Steven's first instinct was to insert an ultra confident version of himself into the story to help Rodrigo. And it was when Peridot asked Steven or Stefan to cheat on Rodrigo that Steven took it personally and was like, you can't do my man Rodrigo dirty like that, So it's those insecurities that Stephen identified in Rodrigo in the first place, and yet another friend leaving him behind. So like that's all basically quoting from Cram directly. I had a comment in front of me as I went through that. So that was the point Cram was making. Really good point. And I think so. And I think you combine the two. You combine the Dogcopter stuff with this. You sort of go, oh, actually, yeah, that makes a heap of sense. Like he's definitely not maybe regressing is the wrong word, but he's definitely taking comfort in the familiar.
Yeah, I
for sure.
Completely agree.
Yeah. So that was a really good thing. The stuff that was in Amethyst's stomach. So as we all know, Amethyst has shapeshifted herself a stomach, so that she can eat.
Yeah,
food.
that was so funny.
So there's a bit in it for those who don't remember because they're listening in the future.
Here we are in the future.
There you go. Dr. Maheshwaran had taken X-rays of all the other gems prior to Stephen showing up a few months before, and it was just their gems were visible on the X-ray because their bodies are made of light, except for Amethyst, who it was her gem, a sandwich, a donut, a tin can, and a baseball, I think, in the stomach. So they've talked in the past. I don't think they've ever actually confirmed it out loud, but maybe they have. In the context of the show, I'm not sure if they've ever actually said it, but the reason Amethyst can eat is that she can shapeshift herself a stomach to contain the food. And that's what that was. I thought it was pretty fun little detail.
That was so funny. Such a good detail. And like Connie's mum's like paws as well. Like on Amethyst things, it's just like, well, yeah.
It's very good. The fractures on Stephen, which I thought was a really cool idea as well. The idea that Stephen's taken a lot of physical trauma, but his body heals immediately. It's really cool. Explains a whole lot for a start. But did you notice that the cracks around his head and skull matched a little bit the cracks on Pink Pearl?
No, I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
no.
the pattern was similar. Not the same, but similar. Like I don't know if that was intentional or just, well, if you're going to draw cracks around an eye, it kind of looks the same either way. I don't know. I thought there was then an element of I don't know if they were trying to draw a parallel there or not. Another person damaged by the choices of Pink Diamond. I don't know, but certainly a thought.
Interesting.
Yeah. I thought. I just want to give Zach a shout out, particularly again for I mentioned this earlier, but his delivery on when he says, "Connie, thank you," so sincere, so heartfelt. What a wonderful. He sells way more than the script sells. The affection in that moment,
performance,
absolutely stunning. I thought even when he's telling Connie, "I can't be around you right now," again, you feel like he's not saying go away forever. He's very much saying it's upsetting me right now. This is making this worse. Please, can you? And Connie, what's amazing as well is the way they write it. Connie understands immediately, which is really cool.
Yeah.
I also just want to point out, Greg, at the end, if you want to be a giant boy, we can use the car wash as a shower.
Yeah, that was very funny.
I laughed a lot at that. I thought that was really funny. And then the last thing I want to talk about is all the shit that he references in this episode when he's going through his mental trauma. So I've got a list of everything that's referenced. It's a long list, but do you want me to quickly go through it? Would you be interested in seeing all the stuff that flashes by? So the first ones he mentions, so the cookie cat being cancelled, getting trapped in the bottom of the ocean with Connie obviously fighting the corrupted Nephrite, turning into a cat monster, almost dying in so many birthdays, Amethyst gem getting cracked, Pearl being poofed, Jasper poofing Garnet, and then waking up in the jailbreak warship, right? But the other ones that we then see while Dr. Haishwarn is talking to him, witnessing alternate Stevens dying in Stephen and the Stevens, which he at the time said that was quite traumatic, and it obviously evidently was. The Universe Mach 3 falling apart from Space Race, being kidnapped by Ronaldo and Keep Beach City weird, Lars almost being sacrificed in Horror Club, Amethyst shapeshifting into Rose Quartz in Maximum Capacity, the idea that that's part of his trauma, not Greg's, because that was very much played as a Greg trauma in that moment. But of course that would have upset Stephen as well. Lapis Lazuli trapping Jasper under the ocean in Jailbreak, being attacked by the crystal gems while in Peridot's escape pod in Joyride, witnessing the hand cluster form and keeping it together, almost being attacked by Jasper in the Mindscape in Chilteed, being attacked by Peridot in Friendship, being attacked by the cluster gems in Nightmare Hospital, being kidnapped by Peridot in Catch and Release, comforting the cluster in Gem Drill, seeing a corrupted ocean Jasper in Gem Hunt, being attacked by Bismuth in Bismuth, witnessing Jasper's corruption in Earthlings. I mean, this is insane. You just realize, oh my god, this kid has been through so much. Being attacked by Eyeball in Bubbled, his panic attack in Mindful Education, the roaming eye going faster in Adventures in Light Distortion, confronting the fake Rose that Stephen made in Storm in the Room, Connie being kidnapped by Topaz in Are You My Dad, being interrogated by Blue Diamond in The Trial, Lars dying in Off Colors, Stavoni crashing the Star Skipper in Lars of the Stars, Stavoni's dream about Pink Diamond in Jungle Moon, trying to get through Yellow and Blue Diamond, get through to Yellow and Blue Diamond in Reunited, his nightmare from Together Alone, being grabbed by Yellow Diamond to Stavoni in Together Alone, Blue Diamond using her emotional powers on him in Change Your Mind, scaling the Diamond mech as Obsidian in Change Your Mind, his nightmare of the corrupting light in Change Your Mind, garnet, amethyst, pearl, all being controlled by white diamond from Change Your Mind, and then having his gem pulled out in Change Your Mind. And what's incredible about that list, obviously, other than running through the whole show, and obviously the really good joke when she interrupts him after only a couple of him saying, "That's only the early stuff," which I love.
Yeah. That was basically the season 1 recap.
Yeah, what's amazing about that is, like, some of these are so, like, being kidnapped by Peridot in Catch and Release. When he mentioned that, I thought, yeah, that happened. And I looked up some clips of that episode. And what really struck me is I was watching that, and there's a joke in that episode where he's kidnapped by Peridot. She tries to get him to fix the warp pad. And he's like, and I wrote this down. "Oh, okay, just give me a second. My mouth gets really dry when I'm scared." And it's played as a joke in the episode. But fuck me, does it take on a different context now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, like, you know, things like, for me, it's things like Ronaldo kidnapping him, being on there and all that kind of stuff.
Incredible. Like,
yeah.
Wow. When you realise all he's been through and you lay it out like I did, and there's a reason I read through that list, is because everything that you say, you go, yeah, that's one of those things is enough to traumatise someone. I mean, ridiculous. Like,
do you think there's people? Do you think it's partly? I'm sure it wasn't for this reason. Do you think there's people out there that don't buy Stevens traumatized as a plot? I haven't come across any.
I tell you what, you'd have to be pretty heartless to not see it. But yeah, maybe. I mean, I've always complimented the show on how well they've established the absolute mess this child has inherited. And it comes up a lot on the show because it's a point I often bring up because it's something I continually am amazed that the show does and does so well. But yeah, I suppose it's absolutely possible. I would like to think not, but yeah, for sure, there's a possibility.
I thought that whole montage was great for the reasons you outlined, basically.
Yeah, and I thought
it did a lot.
They were clever in a structural perspective as well, to only have him discuss the first couple, and then Dr. Maheshwaran comes in to explain what his trauma is, but they just keep... you know that while she's talking, he's thinking back even further, and the way they do that is just by showing you even more visually while she's talking. So it makes her explanation visually interesting, but also reminds you that Steven's running through all the shit that's happened to him in that moment. Really well done. Tells you a lot what's going on. I want to actually cover, again, another quote from that same interview from Rebecca Sugar regarding his... regarding the powers, and then we'll get to the Triv. She was asked in that same IO9 interview about the cortisol thing. And she says, well, we say it very specifically in Growing Pains that what he's experiencing is the gem equivalent of cortisol. At this point, Steven's been in so many life-threatening situations that his gem is responding as if his life is in danger. It's making him stronger, it's making him faster, it's making him heavier. It's making him whatever he needs to be to get out of life-threatening situations. The problem is he's not in life-threatening situations, but his body has learned to react that way. His gem has learned to react that way, so what's happening when he's turning pink? That reaction is his life-saving instinct.
It's such a beautiful and clever storyline when you compare it to the early days of he's trying to work out how to activate his gem. He's trying to work out how to get a shield. The notion that he's been through so much that his body is now doing it automatically for things that don't matter. Like, fuck, have we gone places with this show?
Yeah. It's incredible.
Like, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Listening to some of the things Zach said in the build up to this about how it's some of his favorite stuff and how it's some of the most complex stuff and how it was some of the most some of this hit the most home for him. You sort of could easily see what he was talking about now. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's pretty incredible. I would love to get a chance to interview him again now post the show, where we can talk about how some of his own life experiences.
Maybe in 10 years' time, when public events are allowed again, we'll get that chance.
You never know.
Maybe Comic-Con 2030.
Yeah. Well, I'm still gunning for all of them. I want to do interviews with everyone now the show's over. It'd be great.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Anyway, so to the trivia.
Yeah, to the Triv. Take us there.
Yeah. So when the gems are given X-rays, only their gemstones are seen. Obviously, Amethyst X-ray, not only is her gemstone visible, but the contents of her shapeshift. I don't know why I put that one in, because that one doesn't actually say which items were in her digestive system, so I added them above, which is why I'm covering it. So I should have deleted that one. Forgot. My bad. In the Dogcopter 6 trailer, Drew's name might be a nod to Drew Green, who storyboarded this particular episode.
Nice.
Steven's birthday is finally confirmed as being August 15th. It's on his hospital chart. We've always known that was his birthday. It's been mentioned by the crew before, because it's actually the birthday of Rebecca Sugar's brother, Steven Sugar, who is sort of a mild inspiration for the character. And his birthday is obviously August 15th too, so they've always said that was his birthday, but this is the first time we've actually seen confirmation of that on screen, in the context of the show. Cultural references, Stephen referring to his issues as third era problems is a play on the phrase first world problems. I thought that was pretty clever.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. And like, just obviously, I know everyone listening will get it, but the third era 3 of the gems and stuff. Yeah, I thought that was lovely.
And I mentioned last week that there was some more spurious trivia down below, and I didn't get to any. It's because I was thinking of this one. Now, this one, I love this to be true, but it's very thin. So, take it as you will. The episode's themes of stress, anxiety, and trauma are similar to Netflix's hit adult animated comedy, BoJack Horseman, especially what Beatrice Sugarman went through in her childhood. The way Stephen remembers his past through flashbacks that can be seen in the background and Stephen facing the front making different expressions is a reference to BoJack Horseman's Season 6 opening. Not 100% convinced that's an intentional reference. It certainly does match, and there are definitely... you can definitely draw parallels to some of the stuff they dealt with in BoJack Horseman and this, but I think that's a bit spurious. It's not so direct that I'd say with confidence that the crew were thinking of that when they put it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. Steven's ringtone from Full Disclosure, when Connie calls him, that was a nice little bit of a nod to the original.
Oh, nice continuity.
Yeah. During Steven's medical examination, Quartz Cutie Pie DeMayo Diamond can be seen as his middle name. So
really?
So I guess at some point he's had it changed to that.
Or maybe when asked for his name, he gave that. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I thought that was funny.
Wow.
Yeah. An interesting bit of continuity here. So the mug he drinks from at the end of this episode, when he's talking to his dad, they have that really sweet conversation, which we didn't talk about too much, but it's just a really lovely conversation.
They did really hold on that mug. So yeah, because I was kind of like, is the point like, oh, he's got some hot chocolate? I'm fascinated to hear this one. Go on.
Yeah, so the mug has only been seen in the show once before in the episode Gem Hunt. Connie used it when they were camping as they were searching with Pearl for those two.
Right. Okay.
Those two corrupted quartz, and
yeah, I remember.
We know the cup is showing up again because in the trailer it can be seen, and it gets a crack through it.
Right, okay.
So I don't know if that's just like they're just doing some visual tie-ins to the show, and it's like it sort of represents. It's kind of about his relationship.
It felt very deliberate, didn't it?
It did, and I can't decide
noticeable. It was very noticeable.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Someone joked on what I saw on like the Reddit or the Discord that maybe it's just that they really like The Good Place and it's a frog mug. Maybe it just belongs to that guy that loves frogs.
I doubt that. That's great. That's awesome. I would love it if it was that, but timing wise, I'm not sure. But yeah,
but oh man, if you haven't watched The Good Place, by the way, guys, and you've got some time on your hands because you're self-isolating or whatever, go watch The Good Place.
I tell you, The Good Place is right up the street of anyone that loves this show.
Yeah, it might take a couple episodes for you to get into it because it doesn't win everyone over straight away. I found, because it depends what you're looking for. When I first started watching it, I was just happy that a show with such a unique tone existed, and then I fell in love with it for very different, more emotional reasons as I watched more. But that if you're not fussed about the sort of tone and stuff, and like you're looking for more emotional storytelling, just sort of push through the first handful of episodes and let it get there, because I promise you're in for a real treat. Separate to that though, yeah, so we know the cup's coming back and it's getting a crack through it at some point. So I wonder, there's two versions of this. One is it's just a symbolic imagery. It kind of represents his relationship with Connie. You know, the two marshmallows floating inside the cup. Like, you know, it's just a reference to him and Connie specifically. It evokes Connie for him. Maybe he's reverted to using that mug because it reminds him of Connie. You know, so it's not supposed to be a deliberate like plot point or anything. It's just he chose that mug as you know, and it's like a subtle one, like the dog copter thing we talked about earlier. The fact it gets a crack through it, or is shown to get a crack through it later, I think could be just linked to that, where, you know, when things get really bad, symbolically a crack goes through the cup that represents his link to Connie. Maybe his relationship with Connie goes tits up, maybe. Or again, maybe they've just stocking the house full of references to the show. So the cup, the cup is turning up again. The possibility that I feel like doesn't really make sense is that it is some sort of plot point, the cup. I don't think that's likely, because I just don't know what you would do with it. Like, it could be, because you're right, they lingered on it a long time. But I feel like just out of, again, establishing that tone and that connection and stuff, because I can't.
Yeah, or
unless you
like
can
the
think of
notion
an explanation, because it eludes me.
No, I interpreted, the only explanation I had was Greg's made him a hot, comforting drink. He's put it there. Stephen's in bed with a hot drink. You know, it's the notion of getting someone better. Do you know what I mean? That was all, and that notion of rest and talking and comfort.
Yeah,
was my interpretation. But I definitely was like, why are they lingering on this? Maybe it's that. Like, but I certainly noticed it without a shadow.
Yeah,
of a doubt.
Yeah. One last piece of triv, and it's this one is from a section of the trivia we rarely venture into, Chris. There's a section of the trivia that we always scoot over called errors. And the reason we scoot over errors is because 90% of the time it's just like small animation errors, which, to be honest with you, they animate the show beautifully. If for one frame Steven's gem is the wrong shape, I couldn't care less. I think they do such a good job. It seems churlish to go like, and they got this one frame wrong, and Connie's hand, or an asset for it was, if you freeze it in this exact frame, it vanishes for a second or whatever. I don't care. And I'm not picking up. Look, I think it's nice that people catalogue these things and say, hey, look, it's like they made a little mistake. But for us to read them out on this podcast would feel like. Does that make sense? So I'm not mocking.
Yeah,
I'm not that voice wasn't for them. It was for us, because for us to repeat.
I'm with you.
Yeah, anyone who's taking the trouble to log those, it's of interest. I understand, no problem. I'm not judging anyone doing that, but for us to make a point of it on this podcast would feel like mocking and churlish, and would detract from the hard work that goes into making the show look as good as it does. But occasionally in the errors, there's something of note story-wise, not just an animation bug. So, despite Snow Day taking place during winter, which would imply Stephen is now 17, because his birthday is in August, so we knew he was 16, then winter happened, therefore his birthday should have happened. Dr. Maheshwaran says Stephen is still 16 years old in this episode.
Oh.
So he was 16 prior to winter, and he is still 16 after winter, which would make you wonder what the time scale is. It's a bit of a continuity error of sorts.
Yeah, it can be like, for me, the biggest one of those ever is the whole Spider-Man Homecoming 12 years, 10 years, whatever it is later, not quite aligning with everything.
Yes.
Thing. Because that's just like, how did no one pick up on that? Like, so that isn't as egregious, but yeah, that is interesting. That is like, that does feel like an error.
Because historically, and I found this fascinating, and again to reference our listener Cram, who were obviously big, extra big fans of this week. He has often been able to estimate ages, because the show has been very consistent with its use of the seasons and years passing, to the point where you usually, Cram has usually been able to identify it that way. Has been able to say, okay, well, if this happened here, then this episode showed snow. So then, they've been very good at consistently moving the show forward with the seasons when they need it to in the show, But so I find it, yeah.
Because also, why not just make him 17 in this? Why not go, he was 16 here, fine, he's 17 here.
Yeah, the only
In a way, it
explanation I
almost
can think
makes
of
it
is that it didn't occur to them.
Yeah, or isn't Connie? Do they need it to line up with Connie still being studying for exams just before university? I don't know.
Oh, that could be an explanation. Yeah, that's
To be honest with you, I was quite surprised Connie was even seemingly still in the town. My assumption was Connie was actually at university.
Yeah, we talked about that, didn't we? I don't think she. Yeah, it was.
No, I don't think she is now because she's been able to be reached immediately when needed. But that
was with Lion
house,
though, wasn't it?
well?
Stephen went to see her on Lion, so she could be anywhere.
Yeah, I guess.
And it did look, and that
no,
I don't.
But she's
and I
also
don't.
she's
was
also
that
got
her,
back quickly here.
Yeah, and was that her home that Stephen visited?
Yeah, I can't. I thought it looked like that, but I can't remember.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. See, this is the problem: is I don't remember what Connie's home looked like.
It also certainly wasn't animated to be what I would consider a student house. And admittedly, certainly not in the UK. US, I'm less aware, but from what I've seen,
that is a
any time in any TV show I've seen a college dorm, that looked like a house, and it didn't look like a fraternity house either. So
yeah, you're right. So that's
well, she's definitely also no, because she's got the leaflet for university. She's not at university because there's the leaflet.
Yeah, but in America they don't have the college step, do they? That's included in the high school.
No, you go to. Oh, is university after college then, or is university?
Well, in the UK,
college?
That's the thing. In the UK, you go to college, then you go to university. But in America, are they the same? They're the same thing.
I thought in America, college and university was the same, but I might be wrong.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so, you know what? I'm going to trust that our commenters will clarify and we'll correct ourselves in the next episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, so everyone, stick your comments below. We have to acknowledge here, this isn't a continuity issue with the show. This is us just being thick. So if you want to just correct us and educate us as to what's actually going on with Connie down below, we'd appreciate it. Because we don't understand. That's what we've learned. One thing I promised I'd actually bring up as well was pointed out in a comment again, maybe even it was Cram again, but apparently we knew Peridot's visor. We commented two or three episodes ago, obviously, about Peridot and removing the visor. That's the first time she's removed the visor, and you're like, that can't be right, can it? The common thinking seems to be, Chris, that what you might be thinking of is there was an episode where she had a tear and she reached under the visor without removing it to wipe the tear away. So you knew it was a visor.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
So you knew it was a visor, but you never actually saw her remove it. So it's the first time we've seen her eyes visorless. So it is the first time we've seen her remove it, but it's not confirmed it's a visor. We kind of knew that already, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, no, absolutely. I can't. I think. Yeah,
you asked the question. I didn't have the answer. Our lovely listeners have supplied, which is great.
Cool.
There you go.
Lovely.
So yeah, a lot going on, isn't it, Chris?
What the next episodes we do? It's difficult. We're not 100% sure. We're trying to be consistent, but basically soon you will get more. You will get the next episodes soon.
If the schedule I've got in mind goes out, it'll be 2 days.
Yeah.
So this is going out on, I think, the Monday into the Tuesday. It should be going out sort of Wednesday into Thursday, and then Friday into Saturday should be the next one, I think, if I've done the math correctly.
Cool. Awesome.
So yeah, we haven't seen them yet. They don't exist yet. We're recording. We're recording. When you're seeing this, you guys will have already seen the next 2 episodes, but we haven't. So we're talking from a place of what was it? The 18th of March to date these. Yes. We recorded the last 2 on the 10th of March. So so we're a bit behind, but we're catching up quick.
And excited for what comes next.
Yeah. So we've got 2 more episodes. We've got Mr. Universe and Fragments. And then we've got the final set of 4 episodes that are all going to air the week after. So there's a lot going on. I'm very excited. Are you thinking of staying up to watch the final, Chris, or are you gonna watch it the next day?
I'll probably realistically watch it the next day. Maybe, I don't know. It depends. I'd certainly I toyed with suggesting we should record, but I'd be very conscious of neighbours and noise and stuff like that. And I'm aware I naturally talk louder on the podcast, and it seemed a bit cruel in the current environment to be keeping everyone up at midnight.
Well, also,
So-
I put an awful lot of, like, when we do these, I do have to spend a good hour or two, like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
going through
That too.
going through the trivia, rewatching the episode, making notes, like just making sure there's nothing we miss, you know. So yeah, I would like the time to do that to keep the podcast at its usual. No, quality's the wrong word.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a low
as
bar
fun-
we're jumping, but
as fun as it would be, we can't. I think the only way to do the only way to actually do the live reaction is if we were in the same room, where the energy of that and the difference kind of carries the tiredness and the having to think of your feelings quickly, and that's not possible at the moment for obvious reasons. So yeah, I think I'm very, very excited about it. I don't know if I'll stay up, but I certainly can see us recording the next morning. So. Yeah.
yeah, assuming that I'm assuming
Assuming that that's good for you.
yeah, I mean, I've got my schedule is going to be really weird now because I'm not going to be in work a lot, but I do have to do a certain number of visits to the building for a couple hours a week, like just a couple. So it's going to be a bit weird, but that's a different situation. But yeah,
we'll work it out.
We will work it out.
But,
But
yes,
thank you. Thanks
If
everyone.
I won't plan to stay up. If I'm up at 11, I might power through.
There you go. Perfect. I think America just had like daylight savings time, and I don't know because I didn't watch these last. I watched the first two live, and it was like 12 o'clock till like 12:30 in the UK time. But I think there was daylight savings time in America between the first set of episodes and the second set of episodes, because I think the second set of episodes aired between 1 and 1:30, which is annoying because that means future episodes will be doing that, which is because 12 o'clock's not that late, really. 12 to 1 for the finale would have been pretty good. Like to have it finished by 1
I think
o'clock.
for one of them, you were like, "Are you going to stay up?" And it was like 11:45, and I was like, "Nah, probably not." And you could tell you were like, "You might as well." Like it's 20 minutes.
Yeah,
You're
well,
already up.
Yeah, well, no, it's fine. It's no judgment. Like we all got to get our beauty sleep, Chris. It's important. I mean, have you seen what we look like? We need it.
I look bad, mate. My skin is in a bad way.
Oh, well, that'll be stress. But as I said last week, you're looking trim at the minute, looking good. So
thank you. But as I said, I am. But honestly, I've already cracked into the mini cheddars. Yes, the wedding was going to have mini cheddars.
Which, if you're an old Lithostatic listener, you understand the significance of mini cheddars.
Yeah.
Anyway,
absolutely.
So thanks very much, everyone, for listening. As I said last week, please comment below, give us feedback, tell us what you think about what's being said.
Tell us about the United States of America's education system and how it works.
Exactly. What he said. So we'll be back in a couple of days with another episode of this, but in the meantime, obviously, thank you for listening. iTunes 5-star reviews, nothing less, or I'll come and find you. Why not threaten the listeners?
If you can, you don't have to, but if you can, please could you leave a review? And I in the past, I've felt quite shameful about that. But the amount of YouTubers and content I've seen recently where people are like, "I've got a PO box. If you wanna send me a gift," I'm like, "What?" Like we feel bad about asking for reviews. Like people are asking people to send them shit. Like. Yeah. Wow, but it's fair enough. Like I guess, I just find it weird personally.
Yeah, I think I've come around to the idea of like in the last like sort of like few months of just like asking for like likes and reviews and stuff, because the thing is, at the end of the day, like we would never ask you guys to pay for this content ever. Like we love doing it.
It's not worth it.
Well, well, first of all, we know our value. Yeah, exactly. that would definitely be we'd be lying to ourselves if we said this was worth anything more than nothing. But if you really do enjoy this content, like you can help us by spreading the word.
Yes.
Throwing a tweet out there, a review, and I know that doesn't take a lot of time. So if anybody does feel the need to or want to help us in some way, you are absolutely welcome and encouraged to like, subscribe, review, all that jazz, because you do all that stuff. Frustratingly, it does help. It's not. Yeah. We're not just saying it because that's what everyone else says. Like, oh, that's how you sign off a YouTube video, like and subscribe. But no, in reality, like the impact that a lot of my favorite YouTubers talk about that has on their ability to reach more people, it's incredible. Apparently, like the difference, especially when you're on a larger scale. Like so. do that to help if you can. If you haven't reviewed us on iTunes or Apple Play, or can you review on Spotify? I don't know if you can. If you can, try. That helps. It really does. So yeah, feel free to do all that stuff, and maybe tell a friend. Tell a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Why not tell a friend?
There we go.
So yeah, but thanks very much for listening. We hope to speak to you guys soon. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And come back in a couple of days' time as we discuss Mr. Universe.